So as we are now exactly at that halfway mark in the championship season, I thought it would be a timely moment to bring to you my championship team of the season so far. Now, everyone's going to have differing opinions on this one, so I want you guys to get involved with it in the comments down below. Who makes it into the championship team of the season so far, and who from your club do you think has the best chance of getting in here? I also thought it would be interesting to do now, as come the end of the season, I'll be doing my official championship team of the season, and it will be an interesting comparison point to see where my head was at halfway through the season compared to at the end of the year. So as always, if you're going to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular championship content. But without any further ado, let's hop into my team. Starting out in goal, I am going to go for Blackburn Rovers shot stopper Thomas Kaminski. There were a handful of goalkeepers that I were considering to have been the best in the league up until this point, but I think in terms of overall impact on his side and where Blackburn are in the league at this point in time, I think Kaminski just about takes it for me. He's got the second best post-shot expected goals save ratio in the league, saving 5.6 goals so far this season, which is incredibly impressive. And I just think back to, especially in those first few months of the season, how many matches Blackburn were actually up against it, and Kaminski was just producing a variety of unbelievable saves, and Blackburn ended up winning matches which they probably didn't actually deserve, but it was down to his brilliance that they ended up walking away with all 3 points. And I just think that had it not been for Kaminski this season, I'm not sure Blackburn would be anywhere close to the top 6, to be honest. In terms of some of the other goalkeepers that I was considering, John Ruddy I think has been really good for Birmingham so far this season, excellent signing in the summer. Lee Nichols, felt a bit sorry for him in net for Huddersfield, but he's kept them in several matches this season, and was brilliant last season, and once again has been one of their only consistent performers this time around. Victor Johansson, for how much work he's had to do in net for Rotherham this season, and also Freddie Woodman as well for the amount of clean sheets that he's racked up. But I think that in terms of overall impact on his side, I think I'm going to give this one to Kaminski so far. So he's coming in as my best goalkeeper so far. In the right back, I was a little bit stumped for this one, but I think I'm going to go for QPR's Ethan Laird. Whenever I've watched QPR this season, whether it be on Sky or in person when they came to Deepdale, Laird's always been a standout performer for me, particularly in that game where QPR did come to Deepdale. He went on this absolutely miraculous run from sort of his own half, weaved his way in and out of several Preston players, and is such a viable attacking outlet on that right hand side. He's got 1 goal and 2 assists so far this season, but at 21 you can see his quality and why Manchester United obviously rate him so highly. Yeah, he's been really consistent for me, and there weren't all too many other right backs that have really jumped out at me so far. In as my first centre half, I'm going to go for Sheffield United's Anel Ahmedhodzic. I think he's been probably the best out and out performer in that centre half position so far this season in the Championship. He did miss a series of matches through injury, but 15 starts, 2 sub appearances off the bench, and he's just been the overall package, I think, in this Sheffield United team this season. I remember when Sheffield United signed him in the summer, and I did a little bit of research into him for the Championship transfer rumour roundup, and everything pointed towards this being an absolute bargain of a signing. Yes, they did lay out a couple million to go ahead and get this deal over the line, but from all the reports I was reading, he seemed like a Premier League player in wait, and I think given the performances we've seen from him this season, he has been absolutely that. Not just how good he's been from a defensive standpoint, but his attacking output has been absolutely ridiculous for a centre-half this season. Got 4 goals and 2 assists, so he's definitely in. And as my second centre-half, I am going to go for Burnley's Taylor Harwood-Bellis. I think once again, in terms of an overall package, he just brings so much to this Burnley squad, and we've seen his real development progress over these last few years in the Championship with this series of loan spells that he has had. But I think that this iteration of him at Burnley is the most complete version of him that we've seen so far. I think it's brilliant from his development standpoint, from Manchester City, playing in this Burnley side with this style of play under Vincent Kompany. A goal and 2 assists so far this season, but for 20 years old, I think he plays with maturity beyond his years and has been one of the outstanding defenders in the Championship this season. There were a few other names that I was considering for this one. Liam Lindsay, I think, has been really consistent for Preston. Can maybe even throw Jordan Story into that as well. Cal McFadden, I think, has been good for Coventry. Trusty at Birmingham has also been absolutely excellent, but I think Harwood-Bellis just about takes it on that consistency. Left back, I'm going to go for Swansea City's Ryan Manning. He is one of the more versatile players in that Swansea squad. Has been been deployed in several different positions throughout his time at Swansea, and even so far this season he's played at left back, as a wing back, or even further forward into left midfield. But wherever he is placed, I feel like his performances always maintain to be quite consistent. You know, week in, week out, he's always sort of a 7 out of 10, and with 3 goals and 3 assists so far this season, 6 goal contributions to his name. I think that's really solid stuff. I was sort of between 2 players for this position, Ryan Manning and Ian Matston, who I also think has been absolutely exceptional for Burnley, but as Burnley have already got quite a bit of representation in this team, I thought I'd favour Manning for that reason, who has been really good, to be fair. Into the middle we go, and as our first central midfielder, I'm going to go for Sheffield United's Ollie Norwood. One of the most consistent performers, I think it's fair to say, week in, week out in the Championship. He's already got several promotions on his CV with several different clubs, and I certainly wouldn't be surprised if he adds another one to his tally this season with Sheffield United. He is the real conductor of play within that side, and speaking of consistency, he's been involved in the official Championship Team of the Week 7 times so far this season, which is by far and away more than any other player, and that's a real testament to just how consistent he has been for the Sheffield United side week in, week out. He's a brilliant one to watch in terms of how he operates things on the ball, and with 2 goals and 4 assists from central midfield so far this season, I think he's a shoe into my side, if I'm honest. Then as my second central midfielder, I am going to go for Burnley's Josh Brownhill. This team is a little bit dominated by Burnley and Sheffield United players, but they have been the best 2 sides in the league so far this season. I think that Josh Brownhill has been absolutely fantastic. When Burnley signed him from Bristol City, they were obviously a Premier League club, and I think utilised him in a slightly different role in the Premier League, where he was a little bit deeper. More of his job was involved in the sort of off-the-ball play and winning it back and things like that. But as Burnley have transitioned into this Vincent Kompany side, I think Burnley fans are now seeing the best out of Josh Brownhill in terms of the technician that he can be on the ball. He's playing in that slightly more advanced role for them this season, and I think he's absolutely flourishing in that position. 5 goals, 5 assists so far this season. He's been one of Burnley's outstanding players in a side, you know, that has been the best team in the league so far this season. And Burnley, a squad that had a massive overhaul in the summer. Brownhill was one of those players that was, you know, part of the previous regime under Sean Dyche, and I think he just adapted brilliantly to this new system. Then, as someone to play just off my number 9 in my side, I'm going to go for Sheffield United's Ilman Ndiaye, who I feel like is an absolute shoe-in to this team. Been one of, if not the outstanding performer for me in the Championship so far this season. His numbers have been fantastic, but just watching him on the eye, the things he can do and how much his game has actually progressed in the last 12 months or so, it's been absolutely frightening. 9 goals, 4 assists up until this point in the season. He's been Sheffield United's, I'd say, most deadly outlet in the final third, and considering that there was that void of sort of goal scoring and creativity that was somewhat left by, you know, Morgan Gibbs-White not being there this season, I think he's completely taken up that mantle. And, you know, we spoke about how good Gibbs-White was last season. I'd even go as far to say is Ilman Ndiaye's been better than that this season. I think he's really been that good for them so far. Obviously, we got to see a little bit of him starring in the World Cup as well for Senegal, which was fantastic, but back in the Championship now, and really back with a bang, got an assist in that game against Wigan, and so far this season, just so many eye-catching man-of-the-match performances. He's definitely in this team. As my first winger spot, I was really torn on this one, but I am going to go for Josh Sargent. I'm sort of bending the rules of this one a little bit because his best performances for Norwich this season have undoubtedly come when he's played through the middle as a number 9, but he has also played out wide, and that is the position that I'm going to put him in for this team right here. There were several other names I was considering for this position as part of my forward 3. Ben Brighton Diaz was a consideration, 9 goals, 3 assists this season. Manuel Benson, I think he's been absolutely fantastic for Burnley and probably one of the most enjoyable players to watch in the league this season with 7 goals and 3 assists, but as a lot of his appearances have come from off the bench, I'm just going to favour Josh Sargent, I think, for this one. Considering the fact that Norwich themselves haven't been great so far this season in terms of the overall package, watching them on the eye, Sargent has come up with several match-winning moments in a side that's not been anywhere near as creative as that Daniel Farke side was. So 9 goals and 2 assists up until this point in the season. Some really nice finishes along that way and in that time as well. I think he just about takes it for me, but he has somewhat gone off the boil recently. Then, as my other wide option, and he has played in the more central role this season, but he can drift around in my team, I've got to go for Watford's João Pedro. In terms of enjoyability, Pedro's right up there as one of my favourite players to watch in the league. You can tell that he's got Premier League quality about him, and I know that last time around in the Premier League it didn't quite happen for him, but I think this season in the Championship will serve him really well, getting more touches of the ball per 90, being more of a focal point for this Watford side, and I think he's really repaying that faith up until this point. 8 goals, 2 assists. We all speak about the quality that Watford have in their final third with Sarr, with Davis and Pedro amongst others, but it is Pedro who for me steals the limelight week in, week out. One of the best dribblers in the Championship up until this point, don't think that's to be disputed, and I think he has to go ahead and get into this team. Zian Fleming, another person who I was definitely considering for that sort of floating role in my squad, but I think João Pedro just takes it for me. And then to finish it off with my number 9, I'm going to have to go for Victor Gyökeres. There were several other names that I was considering for this one. Akpom, I think he's been brilliant for Middlesbrough, and had he been a starter earlier on in the season, might have been in my team. For the amount of starts he's had this season, with the amount of goals he's got, is absolutely fantastic. Yates for Blackpool's had a few, Scott Hogan, Ollie McBurney, Jay Rodriguez, all names that I was considering, but Gyökeres this season has just been on a different level for me. He's been so pivotal to this Coventry side. 11 goals so far this season. He is the outright top scorer in the Championship as things stand, and with 11 goals this season he's contributed towards 44% of the goals that Coventry have scored this season, which is by far and away the biggest ratio in terms of how much a player is involved in his team's goals. Not just the goals he scored this season as well, but the amount of match winners he's actually had, the amount of tight 1-0ers that Coventry have had where they've won it by a 1-goal margin, where it will be Gyökeres who comes up with that moment of quality later on into a match. I think for that reason he steals this one for me as the sole number 9 in my team, and I'm really looking forward to the January window because I feel like there's going to be a hell of a lot of interest in him given how good he was last season and how he's translated his form into this time around. But guys, there we have it. As you can see on screen now, that is my personal Championship team of the season up until this point. Would you guys make any alterations? Let me know in the comments down below. But apart from that guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.